Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. Today is a really juicy, spicy, maybe even controversial topic, but I'm excited to chat about it because it comes up a lot. And it's certainly something that I've worked on a lot myself over the last, 10 years, 15 years, probably even longer, 20 years. I think it has come up for me my entire life. I'm 38. And looking back now as I'm talking about it, it's definitely been a theme in my life. And so, what we're talking about today is how do you deal or how do you navigate, how do you deal with, how do you navigate friends and family who just don't get it? Maybe they don't fully support you. Maybe they don't understand what you're doing. Maybe they don't think like you. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a pretty good chance that you are a growth minded human. And so you might have people in your life that are not growth minded, and that's okay. That's fine. We're not better than them. We're not different in the human experience than them. It's just a different way of looking at things. It's a different perspective. And so it comes up a lot on our journeys, especially in entrepreneurship, because as entrepreneurs, our business is a direct reflection of us, and it will only grow to the extent in which we grow. Therefore, entrepreneurs are pretty much always growing. Most entrepreneurs that I know kind of got into entrepreneurship because they were interested in personal development. For so many of us, that's where it starts. And really, that's my story too. So, yes, I sold hair clips when I was 7 years old to my gymnastics teammates, but that's not where my entrepreneurial journey really started. It started when I was diving into personal development. And for me, the journey of personal development started in my early 20s when I was working through an eating disorder. And I went into an outpatient program and they were working through self-love journey with me, essentially. And from there, it snowballed into expanding out to what I call kind of like gateway books or gateway podcasts that get people interested into spirituality or into personal development. So a lot of those gateway books are just a fluffier kind of overview of those things. And I really, really, really heavily dove into personal development in 2010, 2011. By 2012, I was like eyebrows deep in books around personal development, which is when I also had gotten into network marketing. And if you've experienced network marketing or multi-level marketing, a lot of times those worlds go hand in hand. So we've got like the personal development mixed and blended with the coaching or the business development, and they go hand in hand because our businesses will only grow to the extent that we do. So there are these beautiful complements to one another where as you expand what is true and what is possible, as you shift your beliefs, as you turn up your financial thermostat, as you shift what you believe is possible, and you see what's possible in business and in life through other people creating financial freedom, location freedom, time freedom, leaving their 9 to 5 jobs, it just opens this entire portal for you. And I was living in this portal. I first opened the door to this portal when I was living in the most standard 9 to 5 type of job, living in the most standard, normal, I say in quotes, life, the American dream, truly. Mike and I were living in a house that we couldn't afford, living paycheck to paycheck. I was working as a school teacher, an elementary school teacher. I had a 7-minute commute to work. We essentially had the white picket fence, and he was commuting into New York City, taking the train, wearing his suit and tie with his briefcase. And so when I opened up this portal of personal development and what was possible, it didn't necessarily make sense. It wasn't in alignment or in the everyday conversation of the people that were around me. And if I'm being completely honest, because I always will be, the people around me didn't like it. Now, I was very fortunate that my good friends and my family were always interested. They were always open to it. They would have conversations, they would ask questions. But when I look back at some of my coworkers, man, they hated me. They really did. They didn't understand. And I think a lot of times when humans don't understand, we put up our guards. When something doesn't make sense, when it feels uncertain, it doesn't feel safe. And when things don't feel safe, we go into defense, right? We go automatically into fight or flight. And so we can't even control it. It's like our central nervous system fires and wires to put us into this fight or flight. And so it's very, very common for people to feel like the people around them just don't get them anymore. And transparency, I think my ego back in the day maybe did think that I was ahead or better than. I was moving faster. I was growing faster. I used to feel that I was outgrowing people. And now, in hindsight, looking back, I wasn't outgrowing anybody. I was just on my journey, and they're on their journeys, and our journeys were no longer aligned with timing. So, again, there's no hierarchy, there's no pedestal. I'm not better, I'm not faster, I didn't win the race. We're just all on our own journey at our own speed. And when you're on this journey, you're kind of vibrating at a frequency. We're going there today, we're getting a little woo. So, you're vibrating at a particular frequency and you're sort of tuned into a channel on the radio. So imagine that you're turning the channel on the radio. If you're listening right now and you're like, what are you talking about? I only know of Spotify and Pandora. Well, back in my day, we used to have you use the seek button on a radio in the car, and you'd turn the seek dial and it would hit static, static, static. And then finally a channel would come through clearly. You'd give it a listen for a second. If it was music you liked, you'd keep it on. If it wasn't, or it was a commercial, you probably would continue to turn that dial. And when you're sort of vibrating on the same frequency, or you're at the same part of your journey in the same development, it's like you're on the same channel with other people. You can hear them clearly. They can hear you clearly. The music makes sense. The conversations seemingly make sense. Yeah, they can feel super stretchy, but like you're speaking the same language. When you're around people that are maybe on a different frequency, they're at a different part of their journey, maybe they're not even open to having this type of conversation, then what's happening is they're basically on a different channel, and that channel would sound to you like static. And for someone like myself who's a 10,000% empath, I can viscerally feel in my body the static. The static in my body would almost feel like discomfort. I don't feel like I fit in. I don't think that they like me. And it's not that I need them to like me for significance and egoic reasons. I just don't feel safe here. And so you might be experiencing this, or maybe you have experienced this in the past. And that's why this conversation is so important. So the first thing I'm going to say is that I believe, and this is a quote somewhere or a saying somewhere, people are in our lives for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. You probably have heard this before: a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And the way that I look at that, I love analogies. So I think of a movie. We've got our main actors and actresses. We've got our supporting actors and actresses. And then we have the extras that are in the back. So take a pulse for a second on the people or person that you're thinking about. And we can even go one step further. This is beyond people. This goes into habits. This goes into your own mindset beliefs. This goes into the recurring things that you think day after day after day. So who and what are those people or things in your life that are the main actors? Who are the supporting actors? And then who are the extras? And as you can take a pulse on that and you can sort of gather that information for yourself, we're going to dive now into 5 different things that I want you to think about. Because most often, really often, we think, if this person isn't on my channel anymore, if we're not on the same page, if they don't get me, if I'm not interested in the same things, then I need to cut them out. And that is just not the case. We don't need to be cutting people out. We don't need to be cutting people off. There is a way that we can sort of compartmentalize the people, the thoughts, and the habits that are in your life, if that's what you want to do. So if you still want these people and thoughts and habits to be a part of your life, I would deeply encourage you to find a way that you can compartmentalize. And these 5 things I want you to think about will help you do this. So these are not in any order, but the first thing here is what we call in our company compassionate leadership. Compassionate leadership is actually one of our core values of our company. And what this means to me is meeting somebody where they're at. You know, I get this question often. I'm a huge reader. I've been a huge reader for many, many years. And I have shared publicly many times all the different books that I'm reading and how fast I read them and how obsessed I am with all these books. And Mike has shared this story where he didn't really used to be a reader. And he always appreciated that I didn't push him. I didn't force him. I didn't make him feel bad for not reading. So a perfect example, we might be sitting on the couch on a Saturday morning sipping on our coffee, and I would be reading and he'd be doing something else. But I never made him feel bad that he wasn't reading, or feel like he wasn't doing enough that he wasn't reading, or that we were on different channels or different frequencies just because he wasn't reading. He, at the time, didn't find it interesting, or he wasn't excited about it, or he didn't find a book that really, turned him on. So for him, it wasn't really a priority. And I chose compassionate leadership to meet him where he was at. And this is just an example. So meeting somebody where they're at is really honoring their journey, honoring their growth, not forcing your opinions on them, not forcing your new learnings or your habits or your new rituals on them. And it's funny because as humans, we love sharing. Most humans love to share with other people. We find something we like, we want to tell everybody about it. We read a book that changes our life, we tell everybody they have to read it. And that's great, but do it from almost arm's distance. Lead by example, by doing and being a different person and just showing up in the world differently. But don't tell people, in my experience, it doesn't work this way. Don't tell people that what they're doing is wrong. Don't tell people that they could be doing it different or better, or that they should be doing it different or better. Because even those simple words like should insinuates that you're doing something wrong, which again now is not creating a safe space for that other person. So they feel attacked. So they go on defense. And so they're definitely not going to be receptive of what you have to say when they're in defense mode. It's kind of like when you tell a friend or a spouse or a partner, you start what you're about to say with like, hey, I don't want you to get mad, but what? Immediately the person goes into defense, right? Their cortisol shoots up. They're in a heightened state of listening where it's like, oh gosh, I'm about to get annoyed. I'm about to get mad. What's he or she going to say to me? So meeting them where they're at, compassionate leadership just means honoring their own growth. The worst thing I could have done, which I probably did do in hindsight, is walk into the teacher's lounge at school and talk about how great I was because I was doing all these things or going to these events, or how they all should be doing XYZ as well. Hey, you should read this book, rather than just me reading it. And if someone asked me about it, they approached me, then I can understand that that's an open door to sort of talk about it. And that goes into the second thing. So offering insight only when it's asked for. There's nothing more annoying than unsolicited advice, especially when that unsolicited advice challenges the belief system of the person that you're speaking to. So if someone is giving you unsolicited advice that you didn't ask for, and it is contrary to what you personally do or believe, or how you show up in the world, again, you're going to go into fight or flight, and it's most likely going to cause a resentment. It's going to cause a resistance, and they're not even going to be open to receiving the insight that you're giving them that they didn't ask for. So when you are meeting someone where they're at, really only offering the advice, the recommendations, the coaching when it is solicited, meaning ask. And this is something that I've learned over the years. Even in my coaching containers, a client would ask me a question and I used to just come straight out with the answer, egoically thinking that I needed to prove myself. I needed to show my value and my worth by knowing everything. Now, that is not the case. I respond slowly. There's power in the pause. I know that I'm not supposed to know everything. I don't want to know everything. In fact, when I'm in the mode of coaching, I want my client to actually come up with their own answer. I want to help them discern what they believe to be true. But also with that advice, I always ask, are you open to feedback? Even though they're asking me a question, I will still double check with them. Are you open to feedback? Would you be okay if I gave you some of my thoughts? Is it okay if I told you how I feel, what I think, what I would do? And I also will often say, I can't tell you what to do, but I could tell you what I would do. So if that's what you want to know, then you could go ahead and ask me that. And then they'll usually repeat back to me, okay, Jess, well, what would you do? And we giggle, and then I can tell them what I would do. It's really important to not just come in and sort of barrel down and bombard somebody with insight, with recommendations, with things that you think would be good for them. Okay, number 3, expectations. Whew. Man, many years ago, I read a book called Expectation Hangover by Christine Hassler. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's just a book that I had come across, and gosh, it is just one of my favorite books to share with people. It's one of those books where I don't know how many pages are in it. I don't know, maybe 200 pages, 150 pages, and you get the concept pretty quickly. Like, you'll probably understand the concept from me just even talking about it. It's an easy read, but it's such a beautiful reminder. It's like page after page of things. Ugh, I should do this. Ugh, I know this. Ugh, I'm not implementing this. So the way that I received this information many years ago from this book, Expectation Hangover, was basically that expectations are promises that were broken but never made. What? Let's say that again. An expectation, and this is not Webster's dictionary, an expectation is a promise that was broken but never made. So we will make promises with other people in our mind, never having a conversation, never actually spitting on our hands and shaking on it, right? And then the expectation that we created will be broken or unmet because the other person didn't even know about it. And then we get mad, we get resentful, we get annoyed, we get frustrated, we're disappointed. Well, how ridiculous is that? So when you're looking at something like, my friends don't get it, my family doesn't get it, they're not supporting me, my coworkers are making fun of me, hold on, take a step back. Are you creating expectations in your mind that they should be supporting you, that they should care, that they should be interested, that they should be asking questions, and then getting disappointed when it's not happening? It's not on us to decide whether or not someone else, even your spouse, should be interested, should care, should ask questions, should want to know more, should spend time with you on XYZ. That's crazy. So there's a level of taking ownership over expectations, taking ownership over what you are assuming of other people, what you're desiring from other people. And if you haven't told them, well, then I would be mindful. Now, if it's really important to you, like let's say maybe it's your parents, then I would say go ahead and open up a conversation. Let them know what you would like. Let them know how you want to be treated. The conversation might not be comfortable, it might not be easy, but it's certainly only fair to both parties if you're going to sort of lay the chips out on the table. But if you're not going to lay it out on the table, then kind of how dare you get upset, right? Like who are we to get upset? So expectation hangover is a real thing, and I would be really mindful of that. The fourth thing is boundaries. Boundaries are funny. We all have to work on our boundaries, most likely. So the boundary could be not only time, who you spend time with and how you spend time with them and how much time you spend with those particular people, but what are you available for? What are you not available for? What conversations are you available for? What conversations are you not available for? What do you need from that person? What do you want to give that person? Giving and receiving, it's two sides of the coin. We can't give without receiving, and we can't receive without giving, and we really need to be doing both, and most of us are not good at receiving. So oftentimes when you're on this personal growth development journey, when you're in this entrepreneurial journey, most likely you're growing. You're changing the way that you think. You're changing the way that you approach things. You're reading books, listening to podcasts, going to events. You're consuming ideas and concepts from thought leaders who are changing the way that you think about things. And then you might go back home to maybe friends from what feels like a previous life, or family members who they could even be older than you, but they're just not on that same path. They're not on the same channel as you. And so oftentimes it can feel like, well, they have nothing to give me anymore. I don't have anything to receive from them anymore. Or the gifts that I want to give them of everything that I'm learning, they don't care about it. They're not there yet. And so that could feel really sticky. But remember, it's a boundaries thing. So I heard many years ago from a girlfriend, she said, I basically compartmentalize my friends and family. And this is not good or bad. This is neutral. Nobody's better than another person. But I know, and this is from her, it was like, I know when I'm with my entrepreneurial friends in a mastermind or in a course, or we're talking about personal development, that's who I could go to for ABC topics. And I know that when I'm home for a weekend with my high school or my college friends or my family, the intention is going to be very different there. And so this is partially boundaries as well as it is expectations, but it's sort of, and meeting people where they're at. It's all of the same stuff we've been talking about, but knowing that when I'm over here and you can't see me, but I have my right hand up, when I'm over here, I can expect and want and create and crave these things. And then when I'm over here on my left side, I can expect and want and create these things. And those things might be different. So to kind of just like dumb it down with an analogy, you're in that mastermind and you're talking about these crazy, stupid ideas, as I like to say. You're dreaming bigger. You want to build a company to sell. You're learning about landing pages and SEO and what acquisition.com, acquisition is, and how to build a website and all these things. And then over here on the left, and this is not bad or better than, it's totally neutral. But it might be a lot of memories, and it might be a lot of glory days, for lack of a better term. And it might be fun things that have happened and growth that you went through and childhood and family and giggles and it just things that maybe are from your past. and in the same breath could be the most comfortable room in the entire world. Like, for me, I have a fabulous relationship with my parents. I'm so grateful for it. But I can't think of a room that I could be as me could be than just sitting with my parents and my brother or Mike. Like, no bra, no makeup, no filter, nothing, no care in the world. Now, I show up on Instagram all the time with no makeup and no filter. I meant from my voice, but filter of the screen, and I feel okay. But gosh, sitting around my childhood home, which no longer exists, but sitting around my childhood home with my parents and my brother, like, that's it. That's literally home. And it doesn't matter where we are. We could be in a hotel. I could be in a bad mood. I could be in a mood where I don't want to talk. I could be sick. I could be laying in bed. I could be whatever I could be doing is just I could be like the most me I could ever be. And so while over here on the left, where we're talking about kind of like glory days and memories, and it might feel like a distance, like the gap has gotten bigger, could it also be one of the most nurturing places for you? And maybe for you, it's different. Maybe you didn't have that. Maybe you did have that, but it wasn't your parents. Maybe it was a couple of your friends, which I have that too. My best friend in the entire world. Her name is Jess, of course, right? And like just being with her feels like home. And so there's value in both. And this is what I want you to hear from this. Neither are better. I'm going to say it over and over, but there's value in both. And when you're creating the boundary about the who and the what, and the time and what you're available for, and the conversations that you're going to have, and the support that you expect from either, and the support that you expect to give to either, it's just knowing where that falls and understanding that both have value. It's like when I teach social media content, all content has value. Some content makes you laugh. Some content makes you stop the scroll. Some content makes you think twice. Some content teaches you stuff. Some content tells you a story, shares testimonials. It's just like food. Broccoli has value because it's nutrient dense and has got fiber. And cookies have value because they taste really good and they're a comfort food. So all of these groups of people, these people in your life, these actors, these supporting actors, and these extras all have value. It's up to you to understand what boundary that looks like and what container they can go in. And then last but certainly not least, there's a level of patience here. So when we go all the way back to the first thing of compassionate leadership and meeting people where they're at, there's a level of patience here. When you are growing and you're changing channels, not everybody around you is going to be changing channels. This is literally what happens to relationships a lot of times. People will start a relationship maybe at a young age, and as they grow, they sort of quote unquote grow apart. How many times have we all been through that? I think we've all had a breakup where you're like, we just grew apart. You started to grow into different channels. Maybe your interests changed. Maybe your journey just slightly changed. Maybe you met at not the most optimal time in your own personal journey. And maybe had you met at a different time, it actually would work out, which is really interesting to think about. So there's a level of patience here where I want you to understand your triggers. We can only control what we can control. It's our responsibility to control our reactions. It's our responsibility to control our reactions, to understand our reactions. So when someone or something is triggering you, that's a really good flag to say, hey, there's an opportunity here for you to do a little bit of work. And if you're someone who's interested in personal development and growth and quote unquote doing the work, then this should excite you. Because a lot of times these people, these friends, these family, especially from the past, will feel a little bit like a trigger. They'll say things like, well, I just don't understand why you're doing this, or why do you have to dream so big, or why do you want to make so much money, or do you have to be on social media all the time, right? Like there's things that they might say that might trigger you. And so that's an opportunity and an invitation for you to do the work, to see why is it triggering me? Where's that coming from? And how deep can I go to heal that? And the second part of that is being proactive about the trigger. So number one is doing the work. So if it's going to sting or it does sting, we don't want to just blame it on another person. We take responsibility and control for what we can. And then I want you to be proactive. So my brother offered me a beautiful analogy many years ago about a person in my life who it would sting sometimes when I would hang out with them. Just like they would just trigger me. They would just sting. And so, yes, I did the work. But then he also said to me, Jess, you have two choices. If you know that every time you're with this person, it stings, You can either cut them out, or when you know that you're with them and they kick you in the shins and that stings, you can wear shin guards. Those are your choices. Either cut them out and stop seeing them, or prepare yourself proactively before you see them and put on your hypothetical shin guards, because they're not going to stop kicking you. That's not because they don't love you or they don't get it. That's who they are. And it's not my job to change that person or to try to change them. And I love that, man. That was about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less, that he told me that. And I've used that so many times with clients. I've told so many people about that. I've shared that so many times with others. And it's so helpful. So there's a level of patience that we all get to practice. And you don't need to just cut people out. You can absolutely compartmentalize the people as well as the needs and the desires. And to put a bow on things, what I would say is, if you feel like your friends or family or coworkers are not getting it and are not supporting you, then where could you go to make sure that you're filling that void? Where can you go to fill up your cup, to get into the room with people who do get it, who do understand you, who do want to have those new conversations, or set stretchier goals, or be on a slightly different radio channel? There's nothing good or bad. It's all totally neutral, but that's a really good opportunity for you to go pay for mentorship or masterminds and get yourself into those rooms. And that is exactly what I've been doing for the last 8 years, is putting myself in those rooms. And when I fly to a mastermind, I know that that's what I'm going to get out of it. I can be really clear with meeting those people where they're at and having my expectations met there, and offering insight when asked for, and creating boundaries, and then making sure that I'm leaning into my patience. And then when I maybe fly home, or I'm hanging out with friends from the past, or who are a different season of my life, because remember, it's a season, a reason, or a lifetime, then I'm able to be fully present with those people. So a lot of things to say, but most importantly, what I want you to take away is you're not alone. So if you are feeling frustrated or confused, if you're disappointed, if you're upset, if you don't know how to handle it, just know that you're not alone. You don't need to cut people out. We don't have to outgrow other people. We're not on this pedestal. We're not better than. We're all on our own journey. And the best thing that you can do is just to be honest about the journey that you're on, to show up vulnerably, to share with others when it's solicited, and to just hope that, you're leading by example, and you could be that portal for somebody else, and you could not. And either way, it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with your worth. It has nothing to do with your value. It has nothing to do with what you mean in this world. It's simply your job to go on your own path. Your only job is to work through your journey, and the rest will fall into place. So I hope you loved this episode. Please, it would mean the world to me if you took a screenshot, shared it on social, and tagged me at I am Jessica DeRose. I am loving doing these bit more transparent, vulnerable episodes that are really pieces and parts of me that I've learned over the years, because I think it could be really, really helpful for you. So like I said, it would mean the world to me if you told me that you're loving these too, or if you want more of these, because I will get as real and raw as you want. But if it's not something you want, then I'm not going to put it together for you. So take a screenshot, share it on social, tag me at I am Jessica DeRose, and until next time, cheers to your evolution.